Hi, Scott.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
Doing great. How are you this afternoon?
Good, good.
Good.
Still bad weather down there?
No, the bad weather didn't materialize today like it did yesterday. It was supposed to rain today, but it really hasn't, at least here. I haven't really looked at the radar, but yesterday the weather was really bad all day long.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but we have sun right now. So,
Oh, that's good. That's
yeah.
good.
Hey there, long time no see. How are you?
Where have you been, stranger?
I don't know. I mean, in a state of confusion and not Connecticut.
Uh,
Well, at least they both begin with C's, you know.
yeah, yeah.
So how have you been?
All right. Terrific. Well, good to have you here. I've missed you.
Oh, thank you, thank you. And what is a photo for this week?
Dogs.
Oh, okay. I don't have any. Well, when I could take a picture of my feet, right?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah, my feet are dogs.
Yeah, there you go. That's not a bad idea. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that. Okay. Give it another minute or two to make sure everybody gets in. My colleague John is here too. So if you have any difficulties with Zoom or anything like that, just drop him a line and he'll be glad to help you out. Good to see Joe and Jeannie and Gail and Emily again and Nancy.
Hello.
I saw some of you this morning. So hi, Sue and Tina and Nancy P.
Hey.
Jeannie, you're in the car again, huh? Yeah.
Yes, but I'm not driving. I'm staying in a parking lot.
Yeah. I just always feel very honored that you take time out when you're even en route someplace.
Well, it's like, either that or it's like I can't get things done. So
yeah.
I figure I might as well do what I can with it. And I'm doing, it seems like I'm doing more and more, especially as it's not too cold to sit in the car anymore.
Yeah, my wife and I finally got out last weekend to see some friends, and it was just, we didn't know how to handle it. I hugged somebody and I didn't know that, couldn't remember what that felt like. So
I know that is the strange thing. I was this was before they started unlocking things. There was a lady in the supermarket who backed into my shopping cart. And you know how you tend to reach and just touch their shoulder to say, it's okay, don't worry about it. I did that and we both just looked at each other. It's like, oh, well.
Yeah. I also extended my hand to shake somebody's hand that I hadn't seen in a while. And then I stopped and I said, oh, can we do this yet? Are we allowed to do this? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and get us started. Hopefully any late comers won't be too late. But I wanted, as I start, give you a little history of this class, just the genesis of it. I just kind of came up with this in collaboration with my colleague Russ, who teaches a lot of the travel classes on Get Set Up. And we know that as restrictions start to lift, a lot of us are probably getting the travel bug. And so I thought it might be kind of fun to talk about photography, since we've been holding so many photography classes, doing photography when you're going to places with lots of landmarks and famous landscapes, things like that. So I'm going to get the ball rolling here. I had a lot of fun putting this one together. And I will confess that this is one that I had to do a lot of research for photos that are out there, because I'm not necessarily the best at identifying the really good, unique ways of taking pictures of the same old, same old. So this really generates a lot of great ideas. I think most of you have already seen this slide, so I won't dwell on it too long, but I have done a lot of travel photography. I take my camera whenever we go anywhere outside of pretty much Silver Spring, Maryland, where I live, because I really like to capture some interesting photos of different famous locations, but I don't necessarily do anything really original. So that's why I'm going to be talking about this today. I really love being here on Get Set Up. As you all know, I've said this time and time again, it's just a really great place to connect with people and to engage in some interactive learning. And of course, we're here to help you. Ideally, we can see each other on camera. It just creates more of a social connection, which is one of our big goals here at Get Set Up. If you would like to request a recording of this class, we are recording. And that means that you can request a copy of it and have it sent to you. All you need to do is request or make sure that you note the date and title of the class, so we send you the right recording. And if you are joining us by live stream, welcome. We are happy to have you watching, but the best way to participate in a class is to actually register for one, and then you can interact live with all the other learners in the class, as well as the guide, and ask questions directly. And lastly, Get Set Up isn't paid to promote any specific products or services or tourist attractions or anything like that. This is all just purely for your information and not meant to be an endorsement of anything. So what I want to kind of walk through today is to prepare you to head, what you should prepare for before you head toward your destination. And that can help you sort of expedite things when you get there, to really scout out a way to get a really nice, really sort of unusual photo of something that everybody else is taking a picture of. Okay. I'm gonna make sure. Oh, sorry, did my video go out? Okay, just wanted to make sure that was in. Thanks. It's been being a little buggy lately. But anyway, we'll also talk about using light and weather to your advantage, and also using different angles to get unusual shots. If there's anything else that really drew your curiosity to this class today, go ahead and drop that in the chat. We'll have time to go over a lot of questions throughout this hour. So let's go ahead and talk about what are some of the typical challenges that we face when we're traveling and we want to take some nice photographs. Number one is crowds. If you go to any big tourist attraction, say, I live in the Washington, D.C. area. So of course I see tourists all the time. You go down by the Capitol, well, not now because they've got it cordoned off, but say you go down to the Washington Monument or the Lincoln Memorial, anything like that, there are always crowds there. So people are going to be in your picture. You don't really have any control over that. There are also time limitations. You are probably just going to be able to take the photo if you're on a tour or something like that. You're only going to be there for a short time, so you don't have time to really make the most out of what you've got before you to photograph. And then also sometimes along with that timing is bad weather. You might feel that it's too cloudy, it's raining, it's snowing, anything like that. That's going to just kind of mess up your shot. And lastly, the big one is taking something that nobody else has shot. And when we're talking about iconic buildings and iconic natural wonders, that's kind of a challenge to do, but it's great if you can find something that really stands out. And I will tell you that crowds, time limitations, bad weather, none of those prevent you from getting a good picture. It's just thinking ahead of time and then thinking when you're on site as well, a little differently. So here are just some examples of photographs that just about anybody can take, essentially. I mean, I could stand under the Eiffel Tower and take this picture. In fact, the first time I was in Paris, I did that. And it looks just like this picture, although maybe this one's a little better quality. But same with the Statue of Liberty and same with the Capitol building. I could stand in front of the Capitol building, or at one time I could before January 6th. I could get this pretty much this distance and get a really nice shot of the Capitol building. But those are, you can do those with snapshots. But what if you really wanted to get a little artistic here and maybe take something that you would like to frame or even sell? These are kind of ho-hum. And I've taken plenty of these. I have a Statue of Liberty picture like this, and I probably have taken a Capitol building picture like that. So what are some ways that you can differentiate your picture from those that everybody else has taken? One is to kind of get the lay of the land ahead of time. So do some research before you go. You can do this online. You can look at books, anything like that, and just explore what's already been shot at that destination. So if you're going to New York, look at what kind of pictures have already been taken of the Flatiron Building or the Statue of Liberty or Ellis Island. If you're going to California, to San Francisco, what's already been taken of the Golden Gate Bridge? Is there anything original that you can do with the Golden Gate Bridge or the Coit Tower or anything like that? So then after you've done a little bit of that research, just sit back a little bit. And speaking of pictures that have been taken time and time again, but you have a little flower here to make it stand out. This is the little Imagine Circle in Central Park, right across where John Lennon was assassinated. But envision what you'd like to capture. Think about something that might be a little original. If you're having trouble doing that right now, I'm going to give you some ideas, and that should help you come time for you to travel to come up with some of these plans. So once you're there, what do you want to do? If you've got time, and granted, a lot of us don't have this kind of time, but if you do, it's not a bad idea to look for a good location to take the shot. So say you're going to go take a picture of the Arch in St. Louis. Maybe you want to walk there from your hotel, look around, get feel for where there might be a good spot to position yourself, and either take the picture right then or wait for a time when you really do want to take it. And time of day can come into play here, and I'll go into that in a little more detail in a little while. But you can also try using Google Maps or Google Earth to get the lay of the land. You can actually get a virtual tour of the area around that site. So here's an example, somebody just kind of checking out Niagara Falls. But let's look for something different. Let's look at some different things we can do. One of the things that you can do to make a picture stand out of an iconic site is to put something in the foreground. And this is an example. There's a Capitol building, but this makes it a little more interesting when you've got traffic lights and things like that sitting in front of it. It's just a different shot than just the standard stand in front of the Capitol building and get the dome in the picture and leave it at that. And this is another one. Here, you don't even have the Eiffel Tower necessarily in focus. The focus is on the tulip, but that's okay. This is very original. And everybody knows what this is. So having it a little blurred, having this very shallow depth of field doesn't take away from the picture at all. Now, as I present these, some of you may not like some of these, and that's okay. There is some artistic preferences and tastes that go into any kind of art form, including photography. So I'm not saying that these are perfect, but or that these are the standard, but I just thought myself, I kind of like these. So that's why I wanted to show them to you. Here's another one. A lot of times when you see pictures of the Jefferson Memorial here in DC, it's always with the cherry blossoms around it. And I've lived here for over 30 years. I can tell you at cherry blossom time, I don't go anywhere near the tidal basin here because it's just too crowded with people coming from all over the world, really. But here is something a little different. This was obviously taken in the fall, and you've got these fall leaves in the foreground. That's a little different. So sometimes you might just think about the season that a building is, or a monument or a statue is typically taken, and maybe take it at a different time if you're able to do that. And you can always incorporate wildlife if possible, or even people. But here's a picture of Half Dome in Yosemite National Park. And this has been photographed time and time and time again. It's a stunning mountain or rock formation, but you know, how do you make that your own? And here, this photographer just found a little gopher of some sort. I'm not quite sure what animal that is, but anyway, captured that, and that makes it a little bit different from the standard landscape picture that would just capture the Half Dome there. And here's another example, another highly photographed monument. This is the Lincoln Memorial, but this is an interesting angle to take. I had never seen this approach before, but I kind of like that with the columns in the foreground. Just kind of a nice framing effect. And here is the Flatiron Building in New York City, but instead of just taking it on the street, this person got behind some flowers. I guess those are black-eyed Susans or something, but you can still see that they focused on the building itself. So the flowers are out of focus, but it's just a completely different take on that, capturing that building. This is, I will tell you, I did some research. I'm kind of focusing on some of what are rated as the most photographed buildings and locations on the face of the earth. And the Flatiron Building is one of them. This one is not quite as frequently photographed, but it is a big tourist attraction. So it does get photographed quite a bit. This is Kinderdijk in the Netherlands. It's right outside of Amsterdam, I believe. And you always see a row of windmills when people take pictures of it. Sometimes they'll take it at sunset, and that makes it a little more of a eye-catching picture. But I like the way this photographer went about it, and just getting some hay bales in the foreground and just taking a completely different angle to those windmills. Here's one of the Grand Canyon. It's probably impossible to take a bad picture of the Grand Canyon, but there's nothing wrong with trying to do something original with it too, and put something like a crow in the foreground as well. So here's one I took in Paris a couple of years ago. It is not the most original, but it's from a angle that I had never seen used to take the Eiffel Tower before. This was at twilight, and I was up, my wife and I were up around Sacré-Cœur, which if you've ever been to Paris, it's in the area of Paris called Montmartre. I think I'm pronouncing that right. My French isn't very good, but so that's up on a big hill, and you look down on the rest of Paris. So there were all these tree branches. It was in March, so there weren't a lot of leaves out or anything like that. But I decided to capture this as the tower was lighting up. And so it's just a little bit of a different approach to what I otherwise might have done. And that would have probably been just standing underneath it and taking it from below. So you just see it tower up really high. Okay. So I'm going to stop there for a second, see if there are any questions or comments, thoughts on anything I've gone over so far. Any of those pictures you really didn't like?
Well, I have to say that I did like your Eiffel Tower picture.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks. Thanks. I appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah, no, it was very nice. And I haven't seen that angle either. I like the way it was lit up, but you could still see the buildings that wasn't too dark.
Yeah, yeah.
Good time of day.
I like the idea of trying for a different angle or a different type of view of the straight on, because that gets real boring. You can find that in a book. You don't,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, look at this great picture I took. Yeah, well, I can open a book and the Encyclopedia Britannica has the same picture, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And something unique, something that makes it different other than yourself.
Right.
In the picture with a selfie with your t-shirt spelling backwards because it's a selfie.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
I
that's
had
about
forgotten
Photoshop,
about
no
that,
slip.
Joe. I had forgotten about the selfie and the people pictures and things like that. But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about some other considerations. One is timing. And if you're in a location and you've got an extended period of time, say you're staying overnight. Now, I don't know that there are a lot of places to stay around the Great Wall of China, but if you can arrive early, you're more likely to avoid crowds. And sometimes a few people in a picture might not be a bad thing. If you had some people wandering around here, it might be an effective shot because it really gives you a sense of scale. It shows you just how massive this wall is. But it's kind of nice to get it without any people in it either every now and then. Yeah, here's the Taj Mahal. I've never been to the Taj Mahal, but this was taken, I did some research on this photo. It was taken early in the morning, and there are just a few people wandering around, and that looks really nice. A lot of the pictures you see of the Taj Mahal, it's either nobody there, they've staged it that way, or there are just throngs of people there. So this is kind of a nice happy medium. And this is Tulum in Mexico, in the Yucatan Peninsula. And here, this is a big tourist attraction too. A lot of people go to Cancun and then they drive down or take a bus down to Tulum to look around there. But here, there aren't any tourists wandering around the Mayan ruins there. This is a really beautiful place if you haven't been there. And this is Mesa Verde in Colorado. And same thing here. I don't think you're going to get throngs of tourists coming through here. I've been there once and it was a reasonably sized crowd, but nothing big. But this is very beautiful. It's really interesting to get the chance to look at this without tourists walking around in shorts and t-shirts and ball caps and so forth.
Now, I saw a picture of someone took of that at sunset. It was amazing.
Yeah. The next time I'm out in Colorado, I would love to do that because I would imagine it's really stunning at sunset or sunrise for that. Well, you'd have to be on the other side to get the sunrise, but the other thing you can do is just look for unusual angles. So can anybody recognize what this is?
Is that the Space Needle?
Space Needle.
Needle.
I have to confess, I'm not sure if it's a Space Needle or the CN Tower. I think it is a Space Needle. But yeah, this is a completely different approach to taking a picture of a big tower like this. Same with, okay, Mount Rushmore, right? That one's been photographed to death, but I found this picture. I've never seen that angle. It's just George Washington. It can be seen there, but that's a little bit of a different approach. That caught my eye because I've really not seen a whole lot of pictures of Mount Rushmore without all four presidents are showing up there. So. And this is in the Forbidden City in China. And it's just kind of an unusual angle. Here you've got some foreground elements here that make it really interesting too, but it's sort of looking up a little bit and kind of an interesting angle. And this is I guess it's Cinderella's castle in Disney World. And this is just usually people want to get the whole castle in the picture. And of course, when you do that, if you're at Disney World, you're going to have visitors in droves just walking all around it. But here's a way to capture some of the color and architecture of that castle with some sky in the mix as well. That'll be a little bit different.
It's interesting how it was cropped with that negative space on the right.
Yeah. And that's an interesting approach to take. One thing I'd say in most of my photography classes is do not be afraid of negative space. That can be your friend in photography. It doesn't take away from the object itself, but taking things off center, even if there's not a whole lot of anything other than sky or water or anything like that is just fine to do.
And also with that blue sky, it really makes the blue top on the castle.
Yeah. It's a nice compliment, right, Gail? Yeah. So here's one of the Brooklyn Bridge. This is a really unusual angle. I would imagine the person had to even kind of crouch down to capture this because you see it going up. Well, it's right above this manhole here. So that was an interesting angle to take to get the bridge. How many pictures have we seen of the Brooklyn Bridge, whether it's shot at daytime or nighttime? All looks the same. Here's one where they took a completely original approach, didn't try to capture the bridge and nothing else in the shot. It just kind of incorporated a different approach to capturing it. But okay, I talked about trying to avoid people. There are going to be many instances where that is just plain impossible. When we're visiting big attractions all over the world, you're just going to have a lot of people there. But there are sometimes ways to use that to your advantage, to make a really compelling picture. So here's an example. This is Iguazu Falls in South America. And here you've got people on this bridge here. It just gives you a sense of size when you see, number one, this many people on this bridge. and the falls all around there. It's on my bucket list to visit. And here's the Grand Canyon, but same thing. It really gives you a sense of just how vast the canyon is when you've got some people in the picture to really give you that sense. And this is Windsor Castle. So here you've got all these people in the foreground. Everybody wants to see it, but it's really interesting the way that the photographer took this approach here, where the castle is really in sharp focus and everything in the foreground is out of focus. And here are a couple of others that caught my eye that I thought were pretty interesting. One, this is the bull statue on Wall Street in Lower Manhattan. And typically you're going to have a lot of tourists around that. But this was really interesting to just get part of the bull statue in the shot and have just framing it are just sort of blurred shots of the people looking at it. So this is just kind of a creative approach to getting people to leveraging people that you can't otherwise get out of the shot. You make them part of the picture in a really creative way. Here is the pyramid at the Louvre in Paris. And this is one of the most photographed structures in the world. And here somebody decided to take this rather than the standard picture standing in front of the museum. They caught this with people kind of silhouetted here walking through this archway to walk over there. Here you have Central Park. And this just, to me, just is a great illustration of Central Park. It's people, right? So nice little sun flare in the corner. And this is in front of the Flamingo, a famous hotel in Las Vegas. And rather than try to get a picture of the hotel, which has kind of got this very interesting signage and the flamingos outside, just incorporate the people into it. The lighting, this is at night. So with the neon lighting and everything, it casts kind of an interesting light onto the people. So that's a different approach to it. And this is the Navy Pier in Chicago. Also a place where it's virtually impossible, literally impossible, to take a picture without somebody in it, unless you're at a great distance and people just aren't visible. But why not just show people enjoying the pier, which is what it's there for, with the rides and everything else. Okay. Stop there for a minute and see any other comments, thoughts.
You know, I went, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You know, when I was in Key West, you know, the southernmost point is one of those tourist attractions that ever get. And I was impressed that nobody was really standing around, and there was a line for people to get up to it and stand next to it and have somebody take their picture. But the day I went, it was supposed to rain. I was on a hop-on, hop-off trolley, and I was on the right side, the appropriate side to take a picture as we swung in the corner. And the timing was perfect, and the people were just changing of who was going to stand next to it. So I have a picture of it without no people, without any people in it, which I was shocked to get that picture.
Yeah.
And the trolley swung around close enough that it actually came out to be a good shot. It wasn't like too far away or anything.
That's great. Because, that is another one of the most photographed buildings
I'm sure.
in the country. Yeah. Which I didn't realize, but yeah, that's in the top 10.
Because I was sort of bummed out because I was, did the trolley tour and I was going to go back later and stand in the line to get a picture. And then it was calling for rain. It's like, I'm not going to go walking down there and standing in the rain. So I just lucked out.
Yeah.
So some of the time it's luck with these buildings and crowds.
Yeah. We're going to have to do a landmarks photography challenge, and you'll have to enter that one, Jeannie. Yeah. Gail, you were going to say something?
Just that it's fun. It's making me rethink how I would do some of my photos different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's the aim of the class here. So, Emily, did you have your hand up? Did I? No? Okay. Just didn't want to.
Like you say, the timing, the weather, the angle is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also challenging because when you're traveling, you don't nearly have as much control over that combination of time and weather to get the shot when it's ideal. But I am going to tell you to think about something when you're dealing with what you might otherwise think of as adverse conditions in a case like that. So before I do that, let's just talk about some other unique ways to approach things. This is the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, and it's just a close-up, just a piece of it. So that's unusual. And most people can probably eyeball this and know what it is, but it's not the full Liberty Bell. It's just that small piece, just a different approach. This is just part of the Bean in Millennial Park in Chicago. Everybody wants to get a picture of the whole thing, but this is just a nice way of capturing it. That's the Arch in San Francisco, just a piece. Or the Arch in San Francisco. I'm sorry, the Arch in St. Louis. And anybody got an idea what that is?
Chicago Public Library?
No.
Because they have feelings like that.
Yeah.
Similar.
Yeah.
Is it somewhere in DC?
It is not.
Not Notre Dame, is it?
It's not Notre Dame. That is the Arc de Triomphe.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna say that. Darn.
Yeah. Yeah.
7th grade French. Darn.
Yeah. So that is a very unusual take on it. I can tell you, I was in Paris when I was in Paris 2 years ago. I thought I had the best idea. So I went in front of the Arc de Triomphe at night, and I did a very slow exposure as the cars were with their headlights on, were circling around that circle where the arc is. And I thought, this is going to be so cool because you're going to have, when you do those long exposures, you get that streaking light from the car lights. And I got home and I thought, I'm going to post this on Instagram, and you would not believe how many people have done that exact same shot. So that was not original, but I tried. So, but this one is something I have not seen before.
But I think there's two things. One is you want to try to get a unique and original shot, but even if it's an iconic shot and you capture it yourself, there's some sense of accomplishment in that.
Yeah, right. I was, from a technical standpoint, I was still excited about capturing that shot with the that nighttime shot with the long exposure. But
well, it captured the experience that you had, and that's the important part, isn't it?
Yeah,
to remind you of what you did, and so you look at that photo, and that's what it reminds you of.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. I remember standing out there. It was very cold, but I was thrilled to be there. So anybody got an idea what this is?
The Ferris wheel?
Yeah, but a specific one.
Clueless.
That is the what do they call it? The Eye of London, or the London Eye. So that's that big Ferris wheel, that big wheel in London.
Oh, I didn't realize they had those kind of carts on the outside.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Scott, is this one in the Great Park or Hyde Park?
You know, I have not been in London since they erected this. And I think they erected it in 2000, maybe, as part of the change in the millennium. And so I'm not sure where it is exactly, to tell you the truth.
Well, there's one right on the Thames, isn't it? Right next to the Thames? Or...
I thought it was right next to the Thames. Yeah, yeah. I mean, all the pictures I've seen, that's where it is. I have not been there to see it in real life. Last time I was in London was 1992. So. So it's always fun if you can to just kind of play with what light you have. And especially that's really going to work out if you're shooting early or late in the day. So here, this looks like an early evening shot. This is the big icon at Epcot Center in Florida, in Orlando. But this is a little different, just having this part illuminated and everything else kind of shadowed. And here's the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but look at that sky behind it. That kind of makes it stand out a little bit more.
How can you tell the other one is early evening as opposed to early morning?
You know, that is a good question. And for all I know, it could be early morning. Just sort of I sort of leapt to a conclusion, but that could be early morning too. Yeah. But it's when the sun is definitely at an angle that allows it to do that, rather than directly overhead, which is just gonna be kind of boring.
You know nothing at all about the Leaning Tower, but it always seems to me like they take photographs and it's leaning to the right. Has anybody gone to the other side of the building so that it looks like it's leaning to the left?
They're in the back side of the building. There's not a lot of space back there. I've actually walked around it, but seems to me there's something blocking it kind of in the back where you can't really get a picture. At this angle, the basilica is over to the left of the tower, and there's a huge park there, so you get there's really good space to take a picture, but from the other angle there's not.
And does anybody ever take it from the side where it won't even look like it's tilted?
Well, there's a flea market or a market of some kind to the right side of it. So I mean, this is really one of the only good angles of it that you can get.
Okay.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I didn't know that at all.
Hi, Scott.
Yeah, Emily.
I want to share this. I live in Los Angeles, and one of my friends, he taught photography in Taiwan, and he came to visit. And I took him to see the villa of one of the villa, but he requests exactly 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That was the traffic hour. He wanted me to take him to the Disney Theater.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why, because that building was famous to be photographer. People take picture because the sunset. So he caught a lot of beautiful picture at that moment.
Okay. Okay.
It's the reflection of the sunset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
very interesting.
I took a couple pictures for the Crystal Cathedral in Garden Grove. And that's another good friend of mine. He's a photographer too. And he's on the highway. I was driving. He said, stop, Emily. We have to go to see the Crystal Cathedral. And then he told me, the tower was so tall. He was almost laying on the ground and took the picture.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That was the sunset beauty, you know. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Gotta love those sunsets.
Oh, yes.
They make a difference every time. Yeah, here's another one. Here in the distance, now this is one where you really have to look to map it out, but that is Alcatraz. And there are so many pictures of Alcatraz that look kind of the same. They're in the bay, but this one is something I've never seen done before. And again, you've got, I don't know, you want to call it negative space because the clouds are pretty detailed here and the sunset, but it is very unique. And this is one of One World Trade Center, but rather than, you know, so many of the pictures are people just standing underneath the tower and looking up and then shooting a picture that way. This was a much different way of getting the tower in the picture and also a little bit more of Lower Manhattan. And of course, there's the Hollywood sign. How can you do anything that hasn't already been done with the Hollywood sign? Emily, you would probably know this better than anybody being out in LA, but sometimes that's where the lighting can really make a difference. And this was, you know, sort of a misty, hazy period in the morning when they caught this. Here's another one of the Arc de Triomphe, but with this little sun flare in the corner, that makes it kind of stand out a little bit. And somehow they caught this when there weren't any cars driving around it. So the other thing that can really be a very fun way to capture something is to try to get it in silhouette. So there's a Space Needle as the sun's setting. Unmistakable, but it's also different approach. This is Jackson Square in the French Quarter in New Orleans. And I took this, this has got to be about 17, 18 years ago. But I got up at 4 a.m. to walk down there and get this picture before people were all standing around. And I got the statue in silhouette form. And you can do that with the Statue of Liberty. This is a little different approach to the Statue of Liberty. Probably the most photographed structure in the country. Eiffel Tower. And how about that? That's the Sydney Opera House. And with that sunset in the background, that just, again, this shape is unmistakable, but with the silhouette, it's just not your run-of-the-mill shot of the Sydney Opera House. And it's also not a bad idea to try to frame it. Look for ways to frame something from a distance. You do not have to be up close to one of these iconic buildings or statues or monuments to get a really interesting picture. So there's Big Ben, but it's through this archway in the foreground. So that's pretty interesting. Same here, the Golden Gate Bridge. It's hard to find. You see a lot of pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge at sunset or at sunrise, middle of the day, but in each of those time periods, there are hundreds of photos. So it's hard to find something a little different, but this way you've got this little frame around it. I'm not sure where exactly that was shot from, but very different approach. There's another one of Jackson Square, just using these iron spikes there. And that is one that I shot about 15 years ago on the Great Wall. And rather than just take a picture of the Great Wall, I shot it through one of the little structures where you can walk in and look around. I imagine that's not the most original shot that anybody's ever taken by any stretch of the imagination that anybody's taken of the Great Wall. And the quality isn't all that great. I probably could have done something to minimize the haze here in editing, but just trying to get across the idea of looking for ways to shoot through a structure, a window, a archway, anything like that, to get a different take on something like that. Here's another one. There's the Brooklyn Bridge again.
I love this kind of photo because it puts it in context,
Yeah, exactly.
apart from looking wonderful.
And there's one of El Capitan in Yosemite. And you can always embrace the weather. This is on Beacon Street in Boston. Highly photographed area, but what fun to take it in a snowfall like this. And that's at Versailles on a very, very cloudy day.
Yeah.
And this is Times Square in the middle of the rain. So a little different there than what you might normally see. Something about rain pictures in New York, I always love to look at. And that is in Bruges in Belgium. And this tower here is very frequently photographed, but this is a little bit of a different take, and it's very foggy and misty, but and that is in Seattle, right by the public market on a wet day. And it's pretty easy to find wet days in Seattle, I think. And lastly, sometimes you really luck out and you can get 2 firsts or even 3 firsts maybe sometimes. But here's one that somebody grabbed of both the Martin Luther King Jr. Monument in DC, which is on the Capitol Mall, and the Washington Monument. So a nice little combination there. Here's one of the Space Needle taken inside the Chihuly Museum there in Seattle. And the Chihuly Museum is also a pretty photographed place. And we do have, if you're interested in Chihuly, we do have some classes on some of his artwork. So Donna, my colleague Donna, teaches that. So if you're interested in that, check that out. And this one, this is the Lonely Sailor. It's a well-known statue in Sausalito on the other side of the bridge from San Francisco. But you get the statue and the bridge in there. Okay. So before I go to the takeaways, any other questions or comments? Did I spark any travel bug in anybody?
Any suggestions about using, some of the photo editing tools to make the shot more interesting?
Yeah.
Or is that for another class? I mean, like to give it a tint or take a picture that's normally color and make it black and white and
yeah,
things like that.
Yeah, that is always a great option to try. And I do teach here on Get Set Up, and I think some other colleagues do too, some photo editing classes. We do have a Photoshop class and also a photo apps class that these are essentially alternatives to Photoshop, and they're free for the most part. So you can do a lot with those. So if you want to check those out, that would give you an idea how to take even a travel photo like this and make it your own in the editing process. Yeah, Emily.
This morning after the class, I tried to kind of use the app Retouch, but I did not subscribe them. So I used the Snapseed. Is any way I can use the Snapseed to erase some of the part of the picture?
You know, I've got to go back and look and see if Snapseed has that capability. But if you go to that Retouch, it costs $2.
Oh,
And this is, for those of you who have never heard that, this is an app, a mobile app that will actually allow you to erase an object from a picture. So if, say you take a picture and then you find out later there's something in the foreground you didn't want there, or even in the background, you can always just remove it. And if you want to learn more about that, that photo app class is a fun one to see all the different things you can do.
so what do you think about Focus or Photo?
Focus is great. It gives you kind of a blurry background like you would get with portraits or close-up shots.
Okay.
And then the other one, I don't know if are you saying Photor or
Photor?
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Okay.
In fact, I cover all of those in that photo apps class, Emily. So that might be a good one to check out and see how
I
they work.
download the app, but I didn't subscribe the photo retouch. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, so as we're closing in on the hour, just to give you some key takeaways. Again, research and scout the destination before getting out your camera, and think about using objects in the foreground to differentiate your shot. Play with the light, like using sunset or sunrises, and you can try creating silhouettes from time to time of famous statues and monuments. And you can always add people and animals into the foreground to make your shot look a little different. Okay, so if you do end up going on a trip and taking a great picture, we'd always love to see it. You can share that on your own Facebook or Instagram feed or whatever social media you're using, and give us a shout out. Our hashtag is #GetSetup. We may want to incorporate travel photography into a photo challenge, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the photo challenge in a moment. Some related classes coming up related to travel. There is one on using your mobile phone while traveling, one on traveling solo, and then one on how to pack a carry-on for a 2-week trip. That's one I definitely need to take because I can't do that. And my next classes coming up there tomorrow, I do a weekly Q&A, very casual, where we just get together. You can ask me questions that you have about photography. You may be able to tell me some things you know about photography that I don't. It's just really a chance to get together, answer some questions, and just have some social time. And then there is a class on food photography. And if you're interested in doing close-ups of things you create in the kitchen, or even something you ordered at a restaurant that looks really kind of visually stunning in addition to delicious, this will walk you through how to set up a nice food shot.
All the people that take pictures of their lunch and dinner at their favorite restaurant need to take that class on food photography.
Yeah. Because boy, do you see a lot of that, right, Joe? People are doing that all the time.
Yeah, I used to work with somebody that she took a picture of every single meal she ate.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether it was just your basic, something heated up in the microwave versus something fancy.
Yeah. So I mentioned this photo challenge of the week. This is a new event we're having every week on Get Set Up, and it's a chance for you to share your photos with other learners. We can just tell stories about those photos, where we were when we took them, anything interesting about the shot, get some feedback, some suggestions. Each week we'll have a different theme, and then we vote for a winning image from all of those that are submitted, and the top vote getter will receive a Get Set Up prize. And this week's challenge, as I mentioned, is dogs. And if you have a picture of a dog or dogs, whether they're yours or somebody else's, and these can be pictures that you've taken anytime, not just something you've done in the last week or have to do between now and Friday, just send them in. This is the email address you send them to. You can just send them as an attachment. They need to be in by Wednesday at midnight, tomorrow at midnight. And that way I can get them all organized so we can go through them on Friday at 4 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. And we'll just have some fun, share the photos, tell some stories, and end the week on a high note. And the week after week from Friday, our theme is going to be cats. So we're giving equal time to the two most popular pets.
How many pictures can you submit?
Preferably one. I have had some people send in quite a few. And because we only have a limited amount of time, I end up kind of going through those and selecting their best, their best one. And that's what we enter into the voting. So
what is the email that we send them to?
It's right here. And I will also be including the registration page for this in the class notes that I send out. So you can go right there and get all the info.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So you can always share when you sign up for a class, invite a friend to join you. Of course, you'll be getting the class notes and the feedback form. This is a brand new class, so I'd love to know what you think about it. So let us know, and also let us know if you have some suggestions for other classes that we might offer. And again, if you have any interest in starting an interest group on Get Set Up to talk with other people about a topic of interest or a shared hobby, you want to suggest a new class. And lastly, if you want to request a recording of the session, just email us at help@getsetup.io. So thanks, folks. This was fun talking with you about all of this. So hope you have a great evening, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks,
Thank you
Scott.
very much, Scott. Good
Okay,
program.
take care.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.